Hello, everyone. Happy Friday, February the 16th. I am Nate Polvogt here with my co-host, the one and only Matt Chester. Guys, we have the initial early off-season 2024 razzball Dynasty rankings. They are getting published this afternoon. You will be able to look at them on the site. We'll have that link here in the show description after the show. Matt, let's talk about these rankings and let's talk about some trade targets from these rankings. Maybe we can help some people understand why we do these rankings. I think sometimes they don't understand how to use them. We're going to teach you here on Dynasty Diehards. It's the first Friday past the Super Bowl, everybody, and it is now officially the NFL offseason. We have free agency in the new league year coming here in about 3 weeks, very beginning of March. So everything that we're talking about today is subject to change, right, Matt? I mean, we can't possibly know what's going to happen with free agency. We have some ideas, but for now, with our rankings, this is kind of where we're sitting with these players, and we want to help you use these rankings to improve your dynasty rosters.
Yep, always fluid. Nothing's ever set in stone.
Exactly. And that's the key to being a successful dynasty manager. If dynasty fantasy football is something that you are new to, the best explanation I can give you with the rankings is it helps you assess player value. Now, in season, you can use those rankings for start-sit decisions if you have questions on a players to see where people are ranking them. But in the off-season, this is a valuable trade tool, Matt. You use it in conjunction. We have a fantastic dynasty trade chart that will assess player values that you can also use in conjunction with these rankings. But this is one of the most useful tools as a dynasty manager. It tells you where players' value is sitting. And with dynasty rankings, this is all long-term.
I like it. Do you, I can't wait for you to drop the link.
No, I'm going to drop the link. They're going to be going live today. So I want to start off here. We're going to start off with my overall top 12, Matt. Now, Justin Jefferson, I think even with the injury, he didn't really perform for managers last season. I mean, I think we all know that, but it was injury related. I still have him as my top one just ahead of Bijan simply because, and we mostly play in PPR leagues, right?
Right.
The guy, he's a volume hog, and I don't care who the quarterback is. And some of you may have seen on Twitter yesterday, my wife Jen and I having an argument about these values, right? I still think Justin Jefferson is the 101 in PPR dynasty. I can't put anyone else ahead of him just because of the volume we're expecting out of him.
I'm with you. We have always hoped for Jamar Chase to give us those peak weeks more often, but it is hard to put up with the slower weeks, and Justin Jefferson doesn't really have any of those.
No, he doesn't slow down. And that's when he's healthy and on the field, he's going to get 10 to 12 targets a game. It's just kind of built in. To your point, though, with Jamar Chase, now I've got him at 3, so he's my wide receiver 2. With a healthy Burrow, I think Jamar Chase could be my overall number 2. I think he could hot Bijan, but I'm going to need to see a healthy Burrow and see this offense running at full capacity. So that's probably more of an in-season thing. Now, I want to ask you this. I've got Sam Laporta overall at 11. I've gotten some flack for that. He's a tight end. Is that too high in PPR?
I'm a tight end junkie, so I don't hate it. But if I can trade him straight up for Garrett Wilson, it's hard not to do that. And it's just a one pick difference. But yeah, it is high. It's daring. I can't really put up much of an argument against it, though. I don't know. They're running back the same offense with the same coach, with the same offensive coordinator. Jared Goff is what we want to think of him as a floor play instead of a ceiling QB play. So it's only up from there. I don't really see them adding any offensive weapons to take targets away. They've got Gibbs, they've got Amon-Ra St. Brown, and last season they all ate together. So I can't fault you for it.
I just feel like he's such an integral part of that offense. That team doesn't do what it does, and they don't get where they get this season without Sam Laporta. There's a lot of expectation for Jameson Williams to step into that offense and contribute, and he just simply didn't do it. Laporta, I think, took a lot of that volume because he's just that good of a tight end. And it's funny because a lot of people crapped on me early in the season when I was like, no, dude, Sam Laporta is it. He's the best tight end in this class. We all love Dalton Kincaid, but Laporta's situation is better. and a lot of people dunked on you and me both for talking about this. And look where we are now. Sam Laporta, he is the Dynasty tight end 1. Now, let's get into quarterbacks here since you brought up Jared Goff. Top 12 quarterbacks, you really can't argue that Patrick Mahomes is number 1, right?
I never will. Sure.
No, we're watching greatness. But from there, it gets interesting. I've got Jalen Hurts at number 2 ahead of Josh Allen. I know this isn't a popular opinion, especially with the turnover and the coaching staff in Philly. We're going to have a new coordinator, a new offense for the 3rd year in a row. But I think that's a good thing for Jalen Hurts because I think that Ben Johnson was just bad.
Okay.
And I'm concerned about Josh Allen if they don't add a receiver.
Do you think they will? Do you think that? I mean, I can see them definitely adding a wide receiver. We don't know if Diggs is going to be there, but I can definitely see them adding more wide receiver versus just less wide receiver with Diggs. I mean, either way, any way you want to put these 3, I think these 3 are pretty clear, inarguable 1, 2, 3 with Mahomes, Jalen Hurts, and Josh Allen. I think it's been that way for the last year or two, and I think it's going to stay that way for the next year or two.
Yeah, I'm with you. Do you feel like am I too low on Trevor Lawrence?
I think you're 6? Too high on Trevor Lawrence at 6. I think that you're
okay
on Dak Prescott at 12, and I might switch those guys straight up. I know that there's probably a 6-year age difference, but Dak Prescott I think he finished the year as QB3. He's been a top 8 QB pretty much every time he's on the field. I'm much higher on Dak Prescott than consensus, and I'll put my money where my mouth is with Trevor Lawrence and Dak Prescott, and I'll happily pick up the difference if I'm going to trade Trevor Lawrence for Dak Prescott and then take the wins next year as well.
I don't know why I don't like Dak Prescott. He performs. I don't think it's Dak Prescott. I think I like the talent of Dak Prescott. I liked him coming out of Mississippi State, which is a weird thing to say because I don't think anybody was that high in him coming out of college. I liked his story. But with Dak in this offense, and I think for me, it's a Mike McCarthy thing. I think that's where my issue comes in, is that I don't trust Mike McCarthy to continue to be consistent. And I don't trust McCarthy offenses to continue to be consistent. And I think that as soon as they sniff any modicum of a running game, if they can get someone in there to complement Pollard, who's not Rico Dowdle or Ronald Jones, who gets suspended and then cut by the team, I worry that Dak Prescott isn't going to be throwing the ball as much because we know that McCarthy wants to run. They just simply couldn't do it in 2023 because Tony Pollard was hurt and inefficient.
He was hurt. People forget that he went into he broke his leg in the playoffs in 2022. And it really showed for the first 10 weeks of 2023. And Tony Pollard was almost not startable. But for the back half of the year, when he started getting a little more confidence and started getting his health back, Pollard was very good. Pollard was also a receiving back. So a lot of those points that Tony Pollard might have been missing out on would also affect Dak Prescott. So I don't hate him for Dak's game either. Now, if they're bringing a Derrick Henry or a smasher, that might change things up, but I could also see them picking up, replacing free agent Brandon Cooks because this is a very, very nice wide receiver rookie class and it's deep. And I'd be very surprised if they didn't take another wide receiver to go opposite CeeDee Lamb in the first 2 rounds, at least one in the first 2 or 3 rounds.
Well, I think they almost have to. They've got to get something else in there. Jake Ferguson, I think, is a nice piece, though, and we'll get to him in the tight end rankings. Look, I know Dak Prescott plays well. It's just this weird, and I'm probably going to be the one who is ultimately wrong on Dak Prescott. Okay, I understand that, but I can't put him ahead of Anthony Richardson. I can't put him ahead of Kyler Murray. I can't put him ahead of Lamar Jackson. I certainly can't put him ahead of C.J. Stroud. I simply can't do it.
That's
Trevor
fair.
Lawrence,
That's fair.
I can't, and I think Trevor Lawrence is in a better situation, in my opinion, in Jacksonville. I think he's got the offense. It's likely to be more dynamic for fantasy purposes. For actual football purposes, Dallas is probably the better team. But for fantasy purposes, I really like Trevor Lawrence's situation. He's got Calvin Ridley. He's got Evan Ingram. He's got Travis Etienne. They've got Tank Bigsby. This is a team that can play.
Now, I know that not Calvin Ridley. Calvin Ridley is not a free agent, is he?
No, he's not. He's under contract.
Okay. Evan Ingram is a free agent, though. So we're waiting to see what happens with that. I'm sure they will.
I can't see them not.
Huge part of their offense. I think he had the second most targets of any tight end of all time this season.
Yes.
Yeah. So he's a big part of their offense.
Volume.
Very, very hard to see them letting Evan Ingram go.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think that's something that happens. They're a smart enough franchise. They've got to hold on to that guy. He's such a big part of that offense. Now let's move on to some running backs, Matt. Bijan Robinson. I think there's life here. I wouldn't have him at RB1 in Dynasty if the team, the Falcons, had decided to hold on to Arthur Smith. Now we've got Raheem Morris. I'm excited about this Atlanta offense, and I think Bijan Robinson at this point is the Dynasty RB1, and I don't think that's really I don't think you can dispute that. Even ahead of Christian McCaffrey, which is age based, I suppose.
Sure. Season to season, the difference between McCaffrey and everybody else is upwards of 10 points a game. But it is an age thing. I think he's going to be going into his 27 or 28-year-old season. Yes. So I understand putting him second only because of that.
Yep. And that's it. That's it for me. It's a longevity thing. However, that said, I could see Christian McCaffrey being one of those guys who just plays into his mid-30s and is wildly effective. I think Derrick Henry might kind of be the same. I'm not ready to put my stamp on that, but I think it's possible. What would you're a Christian McCaffrey manager. Someone approaches you. They want Christian McCaffrey. They dangle Bijan. Do you make that trade straight up?
I would.
Yep.
I would trade CMC straight up for Bijan and Breece Hall, and that's the end of the list.
Not for Jahmyr Gibbs?
I don't think so. And I might be wrong about that. I'm probably wrong about that. They like to share between David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs. They just like splitting the workload. And when David Montgomery was out, Jahmyr Gibbs was Christian McCaffrey-esque. But when Montgomery's on the field, I just don't see him as quite the difference maker that he should be, that his potential is.
I get that. I do get that. I loved Jahmyr Gibbs was what DeAndre Swift was supposed to be.
Yes.
That's how I felt this year. It's like, oh my God, we're finally seeing what DeAndre Swift was meant to be out of Jahmyr Gibbs. And it all clicked for me watching him this season. Oh, I get why you drafted him and then got rid of DeAndre Swift, because you needed that DeAndre Swift player, but it wasn't DeAndre Swift. It was Jahmyr Gibbs. There was a part of me that wanted to put him ahead of Christian McCaffrey in these rankings. I didn't do it. I got real close, but I would consider McCaffrey for Gibbs straight up.
It's spicy, but I don't think it's that spicy. I think that if somebody wanted to have Gibbs even as one, I wouldn't argue confidently against it. It's just where I personally have him. He's still in the top 4. I can't put him as high as 1. Some people are very happy doing that, and I understand that. And I'm not going to argue it. I'm not going to argue the point. If you have any of these guys, you're very happy.
Oh, exactly. Jonathan Taylor's one that was interesting for me going through these rankings, because I'm not sure what Indianapolis is, and I'm really not sure what Jonathan Taylor is. He wasn't.
I understand that. Yeah, and he's going into the last year of his contract. Right. Yeah, and you're right. It's hard to see what he's going to be in the offense. I think you have Travis Etienne at number 5 higher than anywhere else I've seen him, which is kind of crazy because I think that he deserves to be in the top 5 or 6. Him and Jonathan Taylor, that's a fine tier right there.
Well, and Etienne, I've got ahead of Taylor just because of the Indy situation. That could absolutely be flipped for me. I could absolutely have Taylor ahead of Etienne. We'll see what these teams do in the offseason. There will probably be things that are going to change my mind. Obviously, these rankings are very fluid. I could make a case that Kyron Williams should be in the top 5.
I hear you
right now. I have it 11 now, but I can tell you that he's going to climb up these rankings. I know it's going to happen.
Is it just the insecurity of him being a late round pick and Sean McVay's kind of flightiness with which guy is his guy?
Yeah, well, I mean, we've been through Darrell Henderson, Cam Akers, that whole thing after Gurley. I want to know that they're not going to take a running back in the first 2 rounds of the draft, 2 to 3 rounds of the draft. If they don't take one, then I'll probably bump Kyron up a bit in my rankings.
then you should do that already, because I don't know if there's going to be any even day 2 running backs this year. I think that I think last year they played, I think all the NFL GMs last year played chicken as far as waiting for the running backs that they wanted, aside from Bijan and Gibbs. And I think that it's going to be even more accentuated this year. I don't think we see a running back before the end of round 3. So I think that if that's what we wrote about, Kyren Williams is probably safe, because when he has the workload, he puts up the points.
Well, to be fair, this running back class is pretty weak.
It's very weak.
We had some guys show up at the Senior Bowl that looked decent, but it's guys like Dylan Lowby from New Hampshire, where it's like, okay, you probably bumped yourself into the 5th round now as a special teams player, more than likely anything else. Not a knock on him. He's a really nice dude. Listen to him talk to people, really level-headed. He'll be a great special teams player in the NFL. But that's what a lot of these guys are. We've got running backs who are not Marshawn Lynch.
That's a nice way to put that.
Not Marshawn Lloyd. Marshawn Lloyd is who has wanted Lynch Lloyd. So close.
Sure.
Let's move to, I've had enough of running backs. Let's move to wide receivers.
I'll just want to say one thing that worried me is Saquon's going into his 28-year-old season. He's going into his 7th year in the league. Came out on fire, was the number 1 running back in his rookie year. Then he was the number 10th running back. Then he spent a couple years not quite healthy. He was running back. Right. He spent 2 games in his 3rd year. Then he was the running back 30 in his 4th year. Finished again as the running back 5. And then this last year was the running back 13. And those aren't impressive enough numbers for me to be confident in a 28-year-old running back.
Fair enough.
That's how I feel about Saquon.
How do I explain this? I don't think he's been worn out yet. And I think this is a Giants team that doesn't have a quarterback. I mean, they've got Daniel Jones. If you've got Daniel Jones, you don't have a quarterback.
Exactly.
And they're going to run the ball a ton. They don't really have a wide receiver. I mean, their wide receiver room's atrocious. The only thing the Giants can do, the only thing Brian Dable can do to keep his job is to run the ball. And for better or for worse, they're going to run Saquon to death this season. And that's why I have him at 8. It's volume. Plain and simple.
Fair enough.
There's going to be so much freaking volume there for Saquon that he's going to fall into RB 6, 7, 8 over the next maybe 2 seasons.
I understand you wanting to move on from this section, though, because after the first 4, 5, 6, it is hard to rank these guys.
It is. It's kind of dart throws. It's like just throw at the wall in whatever order they land in. You've got your tier of 1, 2, 3, 4 with Bijan, Christian McCaffrey, Jahmyr Gibbs, and Breece Hall, and after that, it's just kind of.
Then you're running into close to redraft rankings, and at that point, you just don't know which way redraft is going to go year to year quite as well.
Exactly. So now we're going to go to wide receivers. I'm forcing the issue here. We already kind of talked about this a little bit. Justin Jefferson is the clear-cut number 1. Jamar Chase is the clear-cut number 2, and I think CeeDee Lamb is the clear-cut number 3. There was a point last offseason where I had Amon-Ra at 3 and CeeDee at 4. I got a lot of crap for it. Unfortunately, I threw that takeout on a very popular channel with lots of viewers. But I don't think I was necessarily wrong.
No, not at all.
I've got CeeDee ahead of Amon-Ra, but I think they're almost interchangeable.
And you know what? With where you're picking these guys, you just take who you're going to get. And if you need to make the decision on whether it's going to be Jamar or CeeDee Lamb or Amon-Ra St. Brown, if you have that decision to make, that's a good decision to have to make. And if you have to take the last of all those guys, you're still very, very happy. So it's not even worth arguing about. And it's not worth, being shamed for a bad take if you picked one of the 4 and they end up in one of the 4.
Am I too low on Puka?
I don't think so. You have him at number 11. I don't think that's too low. I think he got 160 targets last year. He's attached to Matthew Stafford, which is kingmaker material. We don't know how long he's going to be attached to Matthew Stafford. I am fully bought in on him, but I guess I can't really say that if I'm okay with having him at 11. If you want to trade Olave for him straight up, I'd be very happy doing that. Waddle is probably close to my limit. Devontae Smith is close to my limit, but I put Devontae Smith, Puka, and Waddle all in the same tier. Oh, along with Garrett Wilson And then probably Tyreek too, only because of age, because he's still balls.
Sure.
And then I'm okay with bumping Olave down a little bit after Puka Nacua. But other than that, there's not much discrepancy in where I see your top 12.
Am I too high on Tank Dell, though?
I don't think so. And I think he's the guy over Nico, and I don't think that's a very popular take. But he's going to be with CJ Stroud for his entire rookie contract. They're going to build the offense around him. CJ Stroud wanted to build the offense around him. And when he and Nico were both on the field, Tank Dell came out of the gates as a rookie in his first few games, just blowing up. So I'm very high on Tank Dell, and I'm glad you are too. In two of his first 3 games, he hit 20 and 25 points. And then there was a stretch right before they got him injured by having him block straight up the gut for a running back. His last 4 games were 29 points, 19 points, 29 points, 17 points. Yeah, I think it's hard to say that you can be too high on a player that puts up those numbers in his situation.
Thank you.
No, you're good.
I'm really high on this Houston offense, which is not something I didn't expect that. But CJ Stroud just played so well, and the defense supports the offense. Is it
another Detroit Lions situation in Houston? Are they bringing everybody back? D'Amico Ryans, the quarterback, probably not the running back. The running backs might change up, but Nico's going to be back for the year.
Running back. They can't roll Dameon Pierce. And you and I said this before the season started. You had no running backs in Houston. With Dameon Pierce and Devin Singletary, you don't have a running game.
But you do have a blocking game with Motor. 5'6".
Sure.
Devin Singletary, and they ended up using him. He ended up fading out Dameon Pierce. Dameon Pierce had another half yard per carry more, but that's not going to change the offense. And having somebody who defends your star, CJ Stroud, is going to change the offense. So Devin Single did step up as the main guy, and deservedly so.
Sure, but they need someone who actually can get volume consistently, and they don't have that. But I think they addressed that this offseason. I really think they do. I want to hop into the chat here real quick. We have got Jamie Parag. Jamie, thank you so much for tuning in religiously. We appreciate it. He's seen Lamb number 1 in some rankings. I love CeeDee Lamb, man. Too high for me. I can't do CeeDee Lamb number 1 overall. Not in that Dallas offense.
Did you know that he's still 24 years old? Do I have that right?
Yeah. No, he's young.
He's still 24 years old. That's crazy because I feel like he's been in the league a few years longer than Justin Jefferson. And CeeDee Lamb was the number 1 overall wide receiver this year.
Yeah.
Jefferson did miss a lot of time. Then he missed out on Kirk Cousins. And their age difference is negligible, if anything at all. I'm not mad at CeeDee Lamb first. Like I said, any of those 4 that you want to put at the top, it's fine.
Sure.
Really, any of those. And I've got CeeDee Lamb and Justin Jefferson in a tier of their own at 1-2, and then Jamar Chase and then Amon-Ra and AJ Brown all kind of in the same tier there.
Yeah. So this is an interesting comment, and I've heard a lot of this. This is from Jamie. If Tank is at 12, and I'd have to put Nico Collins above him at 11. Jamie, I love Nico Collins. But Tank Dell, the way that CJ Stroud talks about Tank Dell, it's like Matthew Stafford and Cooper Kupp. It's like they're having breakfast together every day.
And I will mention,
you can't discount that.
I will mention that Tank Dell he's going into his second year, and Nico Collins is going into the final year of his rookie contract. Now he could stay, but just that insecurity has to afford me the luxury of putting Tank Dell above Nico Collins. And it's pretty much just because of that, is because that offense is formed around this last class coming out and showing up the way that they did. And Nico, he may very well outscore Tank Dell this year. It's just the insecurity.
Sure. Absolutely. I mean, to be fair, I've got Nico Collins in my top 20. I've got him at 22 right now.
Okay.
Maybe that's
math
too
is
low.
hard, but I hear you.
Probably going to trade. Now, however, our boy Toronto Dave, what is up, homie? Thank you so much for tuning in. He loves Dell at 12. Dell clears Nico. That's kind of where I'm at. Jamie's counterpoint being the best ability is availability. So I'd rather have Nico. I hear what you're saying, Jamie, but I don't think we can judge Tank Dell on the weird freak injuries of his rookie season.
I don't think they're going to use him I don't think they're going to use him as a fullback anymore.
Yeah, no.
I think they learned their lesson.
Not. Yeah, probably not. All right, let's hop into some tight ends, man. This is our favorite position. I mean, I think we talk about this position more than any position on this show. Obviously, we already talked about this here. We've got Sam Laporta at 1, but then I've got Trey McBride at 2, and I've gotten some crap for this one. I've got Hawk at 3 despite the injury, ahead of Mark Andrews, and I've got Kyle Pitts ahead of Travis Kelce at 5, Kelce at 6. Give it to me, dude.
The only place where I've got a serious issue with where your rankings are is when I get down all the way to tight end 9 and I see Pat Freiermuth. Now, he could regain form and be as good next year as he was his rookie year, or as good as, let's say, Jake Ferguson was this last year, but I don't think that really deserves a spot in the top 9, even though that's where they ended. Some people that I might bump into that are, I'd rather have Ferguson over Pat Freiermuth at this point. And one that's pretty clearly for me missing from this list, 2 actually, are Evan Ingram and Cole Kmet. Cole Kmet, not a lot of volume, but a ton of production for what he was given. I think he's the tight end 8 and tight end 7 over the last 2 years. And his situation's only going to get better with an offense getting better, possibly a quarterback upgrade. Cole Kmet is going to be slept on again this year, like he was last year, and that's okay. I'm happy if I'm going to wait on tight end, taking Cole Kmet, or he's a beefier Jake Ferguson.
Sure, I love Cole Kmet.
Okay.
My issue is the front office of the Bears. What the hell are they doing? Matt Eberflus, not a great coach. I don't think this franchise is headed in a good direction. I would love for them to prove me wrong because I'm a big-time Justin Fields stan. I need to see them use him the right way, and I hope they finally do this season. But they could also go get Caleb Williams, who I've got questions about Caleb Williams.
Interesting.
Yeah. I don't know that he's the QB1 in this class. I know everybody wants him to be. I've heard some Jamarcus Russell comparisons.
Oof. Ouch.
I know, which was kind of shocking to me. But our college football correspondent, Taylor Bars, who was in Mobile with me, brought up that there have been whispers of character concerns with Caleb Williams. Now, I can't corroborate anything. I don't know anything about that situation. I haven't talked to anyone in the know other than hearing chatter. But what I will say is when you hear that chatter, it does get concerning. These guys who think they're larger than life coming into the NFL, sometimes it doesn't go well. I really hope he proves me wrong and that he is the QB1 in this class. I just worry about some of these Chicago assets if that's the direction they're going to go.
I see that, and I can tell that with your DJ Moore ranking, but we'd have to go through a whole lot of graphics to get down to where you have DJ Moore.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. This stuff it's all fluid. It's all fluid. Nobody's 100% right all of the time. With Freiermuth, here's what I'll say about Freiermuth. I think that the Steelers' offense is going to get better because I think they're moving on from Kenny Pickett. I think Pickett's time is done.
Yeah, for sure.
He's just such a talented receiver, and he's such a talented blocker, and he does so many things well in that offense. If they can just get a quarterback that can get him the ball, I think he could be a top 5 tight end.
You know what I've been saying about Steelers, who I've been wanting them to get for a few years, and he's at the end of his contract, like he is pretty much every guaranteed year that he plays. TJ Hawkinson and Pat Freiermuth are right next to each other on the graphic at tight end 3 and tight end 9. Now, what if TJ Hawkinson's quarterback and Kirk Cousins went over to the Steelers? In that case, I could see kind of a direct comparison in play style and everything. And if he gets Kirk Cousins, I'd be very happy having it up 9.
Do you really think it sounds like Cousins wants to stay in Minnesota.
I think that he probably does. But it is too early to tell, and we'll start knowing things in 2 weeks when the windows start opening to see how things shake out next year.
Okay, so I want to bring this up. Ryan Tannehill. We've been hearing that the Steelers are interested in Ryan Tannehill. As someone who is a Steelers fan, I don't know that I hate that.
I don't hate that either.
Tannehill's is not sexy. Tannehill's not sexy.
Right.
I mean, maybe he is, but as a quarterback, he's not. It's not a sexy. It's not a sexy pick, right?
No, he's
consistent. He's a Trent Dilfer. He can get the ball out of his hands quickly, which is what they really need in Pittsburgh, because that offensive line is not getting any better. It's okay, but we saw it with Pickett and we saw it with Mason Rudolph. They didn't have a lot of time to get rid of the ball. So you get a guy who already has a quick release.
And he's a very mobile quarterback, a sneaky mobile quarterback.
Sneaky mobile quarterback. Throwing the ball to Deontay Johnson, Pat Freiermuth, George Pickens, Calvin Austin. I really like that.
I like it too.
I'm not going to be in on Tannehill in fantasy, but
I wouldn't hate it.
Okay, hold on here. 2 QB or super flex?
So there you go. Let me ask you. I'm very high on Derek Carr compared to consensus because of the Saints cap hell finally is catching up with them. They're going to be stuck with Derek Carr for the next 2 years. I'm higher on him than most people are. If Tannehill went to Pittsburgh, I might put Tannehill above Derek Carr. And that's kind of a milky thing to say, but
it's not. I don't think it is.
I don't think it's biting commentary or projection, but I'd be in.
When you put Tannehill in a good system, we've seen him thrive. That Vrabel offense was built for Ryan Tannehill, and he played really well until he didn't.
Mm-hmm.
Give him a new system. I mean, we heard people wanting Tannehill to Atlanta, and now Arthur Smith is the OC in Pittsburgh.
Oh, so that's interesting.
Yeah,
not? Arthur Smith was the guy that turned Tannehill around in the beginning,
exactly.
Right? When they got him from Miami and brought him up to the Titans, and then he ended up putting up a couple of top 12 numbers, top 10 seasons, and it's because he's mobile. He is actually very accurate, and he doesn't have to rely a lot on his arm to get those fantasy points.
Exactly.
Look at us talking about Ryan Tannehill. What are we doing?
Oh man, it's that time of the off season. It's just that time of the offseason. Oh, we have a request in the chat from one Andrew Cooper. What is up, my friend? Thanks for tuning in. Chester, can you tell us more about the Kyle Pitts trade where you got fleeced? Ooh,
sure. This is kind of
calling you out, boy.
It's okay. It was a portfolio play. Actually, it was a portfolio play. All this last year, I was picking up more and more Pitts where I could as more people were becoming disillusioned with him. Great. Give me this talented dude who was breaking records in his first year in the league. He's capable. And now we're finding out that he was way more injured than we were led to believe throughout the whole season, which is really messed up. It gets to the point where it starts affecting Vegas lines and, the ethics of reporting injuries. I still love Kyle Pitts, but I got a whole lot of him. So when I was sent the 106 this year for Kyle Pitts, I just had to go ahead and smash just to lessen my exposure. I don't know that I'm going to be happy with it, but at worst, I'll be getting Malik Neighbors or Brock Bowers. And right now, Brock Bowers he is listed at the overall tight end 2 without ever taking a snap in the NFL. He's a little undersized. Sure, he's a freak. He put up incredible numbers all through college. We've been talking about him for a couple of years. Same went with Pitts. If I didn't have either, I'd be fine with either. But because I was overexposed to Kyle Pitts, I went ahead and smashed that 106. Because even if I don't want Brock Bowers later, the 106 can be turned into many other things. You could always, if you have Brock Bowers and somebody's sitting there saying, "Man, my team is old. I want to reboot." You could get Evan Ingram plus a first and a second, and I'd be fine with that. Yeah. But you might not be able to do that if you have Kyle Pitts because there's a name attached to it, and there's you have to have certain markets. You're always in micro markets in every league that you're in, and those numbers on the rookie picks are worth more than the names behind them.
No, 100%. Now, you just had to throw this in the chat that he's just dogging you. 106 is about right. And I was going to say, I would have been pleased as punch with that trade to be on either side of it. If I'm trying to move Pitts, I'll take the 106. If I want Pitts and I can get him for the 106, now that Arthur Smith is gone, let's do it.
Exactly. I might regret this. I might regret this immediately, but We won't for another 8 months. So let's
no
ride.
regrets. Not even one letter. Come on now.
Nice.
Guys, I want to thank everyone for tuning in to the Dynasty Diehards today, February 16th, 2024. I want to remind you, we have a Dynasty trade chart on the website done by the one and only Richard Sickles. Let our trade chart help you make the best decisions for your Dynasty rosters. It can get you over the hump and into those championships. And make sure you are following us on X, formerly known as Twitter, at FFDynoDiehards, at razzball, at Nate Polvogt, at FFMad Chester. Make sure you like and subscribe, guys. We would really love to have you back. This has been fantastic. I all of a sudden can't find the right overlay. There we go. Running a show by yourself in the back end is not always the easiest thing to do, but I do it because I love it.
It's easy for your co-host, and I appreciate you, Nate.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, it's a breeze for you. We're going to get out of here, guys. We will see you next week.